So good afternoon, everybody. This is actually going to be one of my longer videos because since I'm doing teacher life and everything, I've been off of work for the last 2 weeks, and I go back to work on Monday. And being that this is today, December 30th, is the anniversary of my first video that went viral, I decided, it got me thinking and reflecting, which is what I do normally around this time of year. So I decided to look back on some things. Now, the first video that I did was, the purpose of it was to come out to my friends basically and let them know where I stood on the subject of Black Lives Matter, because up until that moment, I didn't understand what that movement was trying to say, and I didn't know if it was my white privilege or I had no idea what it was about. So I decided something had transpired and I couldn't overlook it anymore. I couldn't deny what was standing right there in my face. So I did that video, and the video went crazy. I'm talking about, it showed up everywhere, like World Star Hip Hop. It was all over the internet. Like, things went crazy. And it was 1 year ago today that I absolutely 100% opened my eyes and I woke the hell up. So what I decided to do was, because we tend to get distracted by the media and things like this, normally like a case comes up, like a Black Lives Matter case, where there's a police killing of an African American, and there's all kinds of hoopla about it initially, and then eventually it all dies down, right? So I decided to, do some follow-up research as to what happens to those court cases afterwards. Like, what happens to the police officers? So I went ahead and I did my research. And I must say, I was hoping to be proved wrong on a lot of these cases, that justice would, in some cases, and maybe not all, but in some cases, justice would be served. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go case by case, and I've chosen 4, and I have a 5th one too. But some cases that you're probably familiar with, right? And hey, everybody, I see you commenting and coming in. So the first case that I'm going to go back to is the Michael Brown case. He was 18 years old, Ferguson, Missouri, August of 2014. This was the man who was accused of stealing the cigarillos. And now the cops saw him like around the corner and said that he fit the description, right? So there was a tussle inside the car. Michael Brown walks off, and then the cop says he turns around, and then he starts charging at him, and he discharges his weapon, his gun, a total of 12 rounds, at least 6 of them hitting Michael Brown over 150 feet away. So the result of that case was no charges were filed. Okay. The Justice Department did call for an overhaul of the criminal justice system, citing constitutional violations, but the cop was placed on paid administrative leave, whereas Michael Brown's family had to pay to bury their child. Right or wrong, at the end of the day, stealing cigarillos isn't a death sentence last time I checked, but let's go on to the next one because I'm sure justice is going to be served. Freddie Gray, 25 years old, Baltimore, Maryland, April 2015. Officers on a bike patrol spotted him, and they quote unquote made eye contact, to which Mr. Gray started to run away. Now, even though they technically had no probable cause for any kind of arrest, they still pursued him, even though he hadn't done anything wrong. So the question that a lot of people say, well, if he didn't do anything wrong, then why did he run away? Well, let me tell you something. A recent Pew Research poll said that 84% of black males feel as if they're unfairly targeted by police. So why is it so, unheard of for a black man to be scared of police officers when 84% of them feel that they're unfairly targeted by police? So the man ran, right? Eventually they caught up to him. They sat him down. They searched him. They charged him with, he surrendered actually. They searched him and they charged him with illegal possession of a switchblade, of which it turned out to be a legal folding knife in the end of it, right? So this was when the van shows up, and they place him in the van without a seatbelt, which is against violation, it's against department regulations. They put him in the van. They make a total of 6 or more stops, half a dozen stops, of which the whole time he's complaining that he cannot breathe. He asked for an inhaler. He asked for medical treatment. And in all of those stops, they just continue living their life as if this man is not back there struggling or asking for help. By the time they arrive at the police station, he's not breathing. He gets transported to a hospital and he dies, I want to say like a week later. Now, it's crazy because he was detained and searched, charged with possession. I said all that. Asked for the inhaler, yada, yada, all that good stuff, right? All 6 cops were charged. 3 were later acquitted by a judge, and the other 3 were the charges on the other 3 police officers involved. Those charges were subsequently dropped. So there was no guilt. This man literally did nothing wrong besides looking at the police officers, of which, hate to burst some people's bubble, but historically the police department and modern day policing stems back to the slave patrol. That's fact. That's not fiction. So this man sees police officers run, even though he really technically didn't do anything wrong. He's just scared of police officers, but you can't technically blame him for what happened to him in the end. He kind of was right in feeling the way that he felt. The man literally did nothing wrong, and he died as a result of it. Something happened. Nobody really knows what happened. So none of them were charged. And some of them, it went from 2nd-degree depraved heart all the way down to reckless endangerment and misconduct in office. So not one of those 6 police officers, not one of those 6 police officers served a moment like there was no justice served, as if they did nothing wrong. A man died within your care, and nobody is going to be held accountable for that. Okay, but I'm sure justice is going to be served on the next one. Let's see. Eric Gardner, 43 years old, Staten Island, July 2014. He's approached by police officers for illegally selling untaxed cigarettes. He does resist arrest in a sense, even though it's not like a physical thing. He tells the cops, man, y'all, every time y'all see me, you always try to arrest me, yada, yada. He was actually on bail for something else. But nonetheless, he gets taken down by a chokehold, which is restricted and prohibited according to the department regulations. He does have pre-existing conditions to his health, but he stated 11 times, I can't breathe. 11 times he stated that he couldn't breathe. His death was ruled a homicide, and there was no charges. The homicide was as a result of the chokehold. But yet nobody went to jail. Actually, I'm lying, because the New York Times reported that the federal authorities in Washington took over the case because of the quote-unquote reluctance of the federal investigators in Brooklyn to bring charges. And as of October 2016, there were charges brought in this that resulted like from this case. There were charges that were brought up. The charges that were brought up, the only person to be charged in this case was the man by the name of Ramsey Orta, who was filming. He was the one who filmed it. They arrested that man and they charged him. He felt like he was being targeted because he did the recording and the video. Because a few months later, he was arrested and sentenced to 4 years for gun possession and drug charges. So as a result of that case, the only person that went to jail was the man who recorded. Nothing for the cop. Even though, I mean, as of October of this year, then they said they were going to do something. Now, all of those cases were things that I had obviously seen, but I hadn't opened my eyes to the bigger picture, because like many people, I would say, well, they were resisting arrest, or maybe it's just a, human error. Cops aren't perfect, which they aren't. They're people, and they deserve to go home to their their family and their parents and their aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters. But then so do the people who they're policing. And it wasn't until this next case that I finally woke up, which brought me to my 1-year anniversary today. 1 year ago, I'm sitting at home and I'm watching on TV. Now, it had happened previously before that day, but it came across the news that the federal prosecutors, or not the federal prosecutors, but the prosecutors, they weren't going to be bringing charges against the police officers that shot and killed Tamir Rice. Now, what bothered me most about the Tamir Rice case was that there's a saying in criminal justice that as a prosecutor, you can indict a ham sandwich if you want to. It's a joke, but it's true. Because if you want a grand jury to bring charges against somebody, you can get it if you want to. So I felt as if when I looked over the facts of the case, I felt as if the prosecutors from the beginning never wanted there to be any charges, but they knew that all of these other court cases that had been going on, if they didn't at least bring it to a grand jury, they were going to have another Ferguson on their hands. So they did the little dog and pony show, and the vast majority of people believed it. They brought all the evidence to the grand jury. And let me back up for a second. All right. So Tamir Rice November 2014, Cleveland, Ohio. He was 12 years old. The same age as some of my students. And this is what caused me to open my eyes and not ever again shut my mouth about it. The police responded to a call of a black male, possibly a juvenile, waving and pointing a gun, to which the caller even said that it's probably fake, but it scared him. It's important to know that at this time that Ohio is also an open carry state. So holding a gun or having a gun in and of itself is not a crime. Obviously waving it at people or pointing it at people is not legit. It's not cool. But nonetheless, this is a 12-year-old boy that we're talking about. Okay. So upon arriving, anybody who's seen the video, and I watched the video over and over and over again, there's no doubt that Tamir is reaching in his waistband. But if I'm a 12-year-old boy and I know that I've been doing something wrong and the police come up to me and they've been given the information, it's a slippery slope because the cops do have the right to go home and they don't know if it's fake or anything like that. But I felt that there was some guilt on the police's part because there was no attempt to diffuse the situation. They literally pulled up within feet of Tamir Rice. Within feet. I'm talking about literally 3 steps away. They stated that they got out of the car and they asked Tamir Rice at least 3 times to put the weapon down. That's not what happened. You can't ask somebody 3 times in a matter of 2 seconds because you shot and killed that little boy in less than 2 seconds. You got out of your car, guns blazing, shooting this child. That's what you did. Like that's what it was. So besides the fact that they shoot Tamir Rice, it takes over 4 minutes for anyone to give him any kind of aid. His sister shows up. They even tackle her to the ground. And he winds up dying on the concrete by himself. And they arrest her, put her in the back of the car. Now, the prosecutors, as I said, the prosecutors ahead of time said that they didn't want to seek charges. That they didn't feel like charges were there. But like I said, they had to do something because if they didn't, then they'd have another riot. This is a 12-year-old little boy. So what wound up happening is they manipulated the grand jury system to get the result that they wanted. They brought witnesses forth to exonerate the cops or to basically prove that there really was no case at all. And that's what upset me because that's not your job. Your job is to present the evidence in the case and to let the grand jury decide for themselves. The evidence in the case would reflect that they were warned that it could possibly be a juvenile. You should have acted accordingly. You knew that it could possibly have been a fake gun. You should have acted accordingly. Nobody told you to jump the curb and drive into the dang park and get up on the little boy within a few feet. And that way you couldn't respond in a way that is responsible to protect both you, your partner, and the suspect. Needless to say, there was no indictment and then there was no justice. And obviously they've had other cases. They've had the Walter Scott case of since then, which there was a mistrial. They could have charged him with murder or involuntary manslaughter, I believe. And it was a mistrial against that police officer, even though he was videotaped as he was running away and the cops shot him. You have the Alton Sterling case that was right here, like an hour away from me in Baton Rouge. You have the Philando Castile shooting. I did my video a year ago to come out and basically state for my friends where I stood. Do I expect everybody to believe with me? No. But where this country has gone in the sense of just disagreeing in general is that people disagree with one another, but they can't disagree respectfully. So I can guarantee you that once I conclude this video, I can read through some of the comments. And because my opinion differs from yours, I can guarantee you that you're going to get inside of your heart and call me all kinds of names. I bet you they're already in these comments. But let me tell you something. Since I've been doing this a year ago, hell, for the all duration of my life, your comments like that are not going to dissuade mine. Like, it's not going to dissuade what it is that I feel. Because when I watched that video of Tamir Rice, you want to know what I saw? I saw one of my students inside of the classroom because I teach predominantly black students. And I have my entire career of teaching. And when I see things inside and outside of my classroom and the things that my students have to face that I will never face or my own children will never have to face, that bothers me because that is proving to me, as much as I wanted to sit within my white privilege and to say that justice exists and to try to teach them about honor and character and morals and all these great things, when they step outside my classroom, it's the complete opposite because they're facing a world that I will never have to face for myself. Now, I see a comment, Scott Newman, how about teaching black fathers to be home and protect their families? You know what? That would be really, really great. Except that there are more black males in prison right now than there were in slavery in 1860. Come at me with facts before you start saying ignorant things, just ignorant whatever. Because the system is ingrained and it's set up that way. You want to know the bigger picture? Let me tell you something. Because seemingly you know everything, but let me let you in on a secret, because apparently you don't know by that ignorant comment. Public schools do not require you to pass social studies and science to go on to the next grade. The vast majority of people receiving public school education are minorities and low-income families. So this means that the vast majority of Americans, the 99%, are being taught basic mathematics and basically how to read and write. So when you graduate high school, because even if you fail, they're going to move you along anyways, that means you graduate high school with a basic understanding. You don't know civics. You don't know how the government runs. You don't know your power and your voice in government. You don't know the fact that you can actually participate in government, hence why our government is the way that it is now. Because the vast majority of people in this country are civically illiterate. So what are they left up to? They're left to do minimum wage jobs. So when that minimum wage job can't support their family, it can't support themselves, let alone a family, they go to what it is that they know in order to support themselves. They go to the streets. Right or wrong, it's what they know, and they have to do what they have to do to take care of their families. So then they go to jail and they do as if what you just said. Teach their fathers to be there. When their fathers, right or wrong in what they're doing, their fathers are only doing what they have to in order to provide for them, because the government and the system has been set up to keep them enslaved ever since this country was founded. So don't sit here and try to school me or teach me on anything. I already see the system. Please don't let this blonde hair and these green eyes fool you, because I see what it is. And just because I look the way that I look doesn't mean I can turn a blind eye to it, because I'm not going to walk into my classroom and teach my kids. And it's the biggest thing inside of me, because I want to teach them not to judge a book by its cover, to give everybody an opportunity. But the hardest thing in my job is that I have to teach my kids that every person that looks like me isn't going to think like me, because they have ignorant fools just like you. Teach them to be home. You don't think a man would want to be home with his kids? It's a disenfranchisement of the 21st century. You can't outright take away their right to vote, but you put them in jail, you give them a rap sheet, you miseducate them, you don't give them financial opportunities to be able to support themselves. So what is it that they do? They go to what they know, they go to what they can do. You put them in jail in hopes that their children were following the same footsteps, of which they probably will, because they don't have the parents in the household and they're not getting a proper education inside of the public educational system. Bam. Facts, not fiction. That's what's so crazy about everything that's going on in this country. People fail to see this bigger picture. So once again, 1 year ago, whenever I opened my eyes to this bigger picture, I can't shut up about it. I refuse to sit there and pretend as if these things are not going on, because when I sit there in my classroom and I'm looking at these faces of these kids, I refuse beyond anything, when I'm teaching my kids that silence in the face of injustice is your acceptance. And I refuse to accept the fact that I'm going to be losing my children, of which these boys and girls, and I don't care what color they are, what religion they are, I don't care. I refuse to lose any more children to 6 feet cells or 6 feet of dirt. And if the only voice that I have has been given to me by the people on Facebook, then you dang well right, I'm going to use it to the best of my ability. And when you see facts like this, whether you're white, you're black, it's happening to whites, it's happening to blacks, there is a distrust between our government and the people. That's obvious by this last election. When there is a distrust between the people and the police and the people that they're supposed to be policing, that is a big issue. Why are more people still failing to see this bigger picture? I think that is absolutely astounding. And with the media being the way that it is, look at this. People get upset about all these cases. Eric Gardner, Michael Brown, Walter Scott, Tamir Rice. You get upset for a little while, up until the media convinces you That is no longer important. Meanwhile, these cops get paid administrative leave for what it is that they've done. The people and their families get absolutely no justice whatsoever. And you have to pay to bury your family while they get paid administrative leave to go home to their family. How is that justice? I must be going crazy. I must be going absolutely insane if I'm the only person that sees the bigger picture like this. It's astounding to me. So I wanted to do this video to kind of give you an update as to what it is that I've learned in the last year since all of this started. And I know that this was a lengthy video, and I know that for a minute there, I kind of lost it. But I'm telling you, some people don't want to see the bigger picture. That's the truth of it. You want to believe the media. You want to sit there, and the media cares about one thing and one thing only: what's going to give them ratings. Period. They don't care about if it's factual or not. This is facts. They don't care about that. They care about what's hot. And the moment that it's not hot anymore, it is what it is. The people want, the media wants to keep us sheep. Because so long as we are ignorant to the government and the way that things run, guess what? We're never going to question it. The solution is the exact same thing as I said in that video 1 year ago today. The solution is one, they want us divided. They want it to be white against black. They want it to be this against somebody else. They want it to be that way because if we realize that we have a lot more power together, that 99%, if we all came together and we understood the bigger picture, then we could unite and overthrow that top 1%. But they've been very successful, and people have been saying about me that I'm always trying to divide everybody, that I'm always trying to race bait. That's the furthest from the truth. I'm trying to show people that it's okay to speak your opinion. It's okay to disagree. But what this last election has shown everybody is that if you disagree with somebody, you're a racist. If you agree with somebody, you're a criminal. There's no respect for one another. There's no respect for differing ideals anymore. So many people are so convinced, or trying to worry themselves on trying to convince everybody that their opinion is the only opinion, that they completely lose sight of the notion that this country was not founded upon total agreement. It's very sad that that's where we are in this country. What I want to see more than anything, which is why I have considered political office within my own community, is because education is key. The last time I checked in New Orleans, 64% of the males were unemployed. So it's no question to me as to why crime is the way that it is, because what other option do they have when there's no jobs? When they can't provide for their families, it's not a justification, but it's an understanding point. When they're left with no other alternative, what is it that they're going to do? I know what I would do for me and mines. I know what I would do. And when you're put into that position, I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying that it's a justification. What I'm saying is that I understand it. I tend to want to believe that every person in this country wants to be able to go home and make an honest wage that can take care of them and their families and not have to worry about the police kicking in their door or somebody jumping up from underneath the house in order to kill them or shooting them dead on their front lawn. I want to believe that people want that kind of peace and solace in their life for themselves and their family. That's what I want to believe. That's what I'm going to continue to believe. So the solution is one, unity. Race, religion, creed, everything. The second, education. Which is why I refuse to give up on my kids. Education is the only thing that's going to get us out of this situation. And the sooner that you guys come to terms with the fact that the vast majority of people in the top, the elite, don't want us to be educated, then you'll start to see the bigger picture. Agree with me, disagree with me, that's cool. But it is what it is. Some people say real recognizes real. And I don't say that anymore. I say real recognizes everything, whether you like it or not. Teach your life.